My name was Daniel Murphy, and if you're hearing this story, it means the moment of truth has finally arrived. I died at the age of 32 in a Taliban ambush in Afghanistan, but my death was only the beginning of my greatest victory. You'll understand why I say that when you find out what I left behind for my brother Kevin, the man who betrayed the only person who ever truly loved us in this world. Let me tell you how it all began. It was 1999 when our lives changed forever. I was 12, Kevin only 10, and we were coming back from a baseball game when we got the news no child should ever hear. Our parents, Michael and Sarah Murphy, had died in a car crash on Interstate 75 in Kentucky. A truck driver had fallen asleep at the wheel during a storm. In a matter of seconds, Kevin and I became orphans. It was our grandmother, Rose Murphy, who saved us. At 58 years old, this small but strong woman opened the doors of her modest home in Hazard, Kentucky, and welcomed us as if we were gifts from God. "You're my boys now," she said, hugging our trembling bodies on that terrible first night. "And we're going to get through this together as a family." Grandma Rose worked as a seamstress at the town's only textile factory. She'd wake up at 5 in the morning, cook us breakfast, work an 8-hour shift, and then still do extra work at home, clothing repairs for neighbors, embroidery for weddings, all to make sure Kevin and I had not just what we needed, but a few small luxuries too. New sneakers at the start of the school year, ice cream on hot summer afternoons, presents at Christmas. "Education is the only real inheritance I can leave you," she used to say every night while checking our homework at the kitchen table. Her calloused hands held our notebooks with the same care she gave her finest embroidery. But Kevin and I reacted in completely different ways to our tragedy. I became disciplined and responsible. I'd wake up early to help Grandma with house chores, study hard, play sports. I dreamed of serving my country like our grandfather Patrick had done in Korea. To me, structure and discipline were ways of honoring Grandma Rose's sacrifice. Kevin chose the opposite path. He started skipping class by the time he was 13, got involved with older kids who smoked behind the school. When Grandma asked about his poor grades, he'd lie without flinching. "It's fine, Grandma. The teacher just doesn't like me." By the time he was 16, he'd already been suspended 3 times for fighting and caught cheating on tests. "Kevin, my love, you need to think about your future," Grandma Rose would plead. But he always had an excuse ready, an empty promise that he'd turn things around next week, next month, next year. When I graduated high school in 2010 at 18, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. A few years later, I enlisted in the United States Army. Grandma Rose, despite the obvious worry in her faded blue eyes, supported me completely. "Go with God, my boy," she said the day I left for Fort Knox. "I'll be here when you get back, with your room nice and tidy and your favorite meals in the fridge." Kevin, then 23, still lived with her. Officially looking for a job, he actually spent his days playing video games and his nights at shady bars. He lived off Grandma's meager retirement, $1,200 a month, barely enough to cover household expenses. During my first years of service, I established a sacred routine. Every month, without fail, I'd send $800 from my $2,400 paycheck to Grandma Rose. And every week, on Sunday afternoons, Kentucky time, I'd call her on Skype. And you, who's listening to this story, where are you watching from? Have you ever gone through a complicated family situation like this? Leave a comment with the country or city you're watching from. I love knowing where my message reaches. And now, let me continue telling you how I discovered the betrayal that changed everything. Those weekly conversations with Grandma were my refuge. It didn't matter if I was under the scorching desert sun or the freezing mountain winds, hearing her sweet voice say, "How's my soldier doing?" brought me instant peace. "I'm fine, Danny," she always replied when I asked about her health. "Kevin's been helping me a lot. He's looking for a job, you know. I think this time he'll land something good." I wanted to believe her. God knows how badly I wanted to believe my brother had finally grown up. From 2010 to 2015, those conversations followed the same pattern. Grandma downplaying any problems, Kevin always about to get a job, and me sending money faithfully, thinking I was helping our family stay afloat. In 2015, during my second deployment in Iraq, I started noticing subtle changes in Grandma's voice. She sounded more tired, sometimes took a few seconds to respond to my questions. When I asked if everything was okay, she laughed in that familiar way. "Oh, Danny, it's just old age. Nothing a bit of chamomile tea won't fix." But there was something more. Kevin rarely appeared during our video calls. "He's resting," Grandma always said. "Worked hard this week." Worked where? Doing what? These questions started to bother me, but I was thousands of miles away, focused on keeping my soldiers alive in a war zone. It was during my third deployment in Afghanistan in 2024 that everything fell apart. One March morning, while checking my mail on base, I received a handwritten letter. My hands shook as I recognized the familiar but frailer handwriting. Grandma Rose never sent letters. We always spoke by phone or internet. I opened the envelope, heart pounding. "My dear Danny, I don't know if this letter will reach you, but I have to try. I've been at the Sunset Gardens nursing home for 6 months now. Kevin put me here saying you had approved it, that you were worried about my mental health. Danny, I don't have dementia. My mind is clear. Kevin sold our house, the one your grandfather Patrick built with his own hands. He said he was my legal guardian and needed the money to cover my medical expenses. He got $180,000 for the house, but I never saw a penny. Kevin said the money is in a special account for my care, but the nurses here told me he's only paying the bare minimum required by Medicare. Danny, I'm scared. I don't know what Kevin did with the rest of the money. I don't know why he did this to me. I only know that I'm here, alone, and I can't reach you the usual way because Kevin changed all the phone numbers. If you get this letter, please help me. I love you both, but something is very wrong. With all my love, Grandma Rose." My hands were shaking so much, I nearly tore the letter. I read it 3 times before the reality hit. My brother, my own flesh and blood, had put our grandmother in a nursing home against her will and stolen her house. I rushed to the communications center on base and called the Sunset Gardens nursing home. The receptionist, a woman named Linda, confirmed Rose Murphy had been there since September 2023. Yes, she was admitted by her grandson, Kevin Murphy. He provided medical documents indicating early-stage dementia and legal guardianship. "Medical documents from which doctor?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dr. Richard Hawkins from Louisville. He certified that Mrs. Murphy no longer had the capacity to make her own decisions." Dr. Richard Hawkins. I'd never heard that name in my life. Grandma Rose always saw Dr. Miller, our family doctor, for 20 years in Hazard. I hung up and immediately called Dr. Miller's office. "Doctor," I said when I got him on the line, "I need to know about my grandmother's mental condition, Rose Murphy." "Danny, my godson, it's been years. Your grandma's perfectly fine, mentally and physically. She came in last August for her annual checkup, sharp as ever, cracking jokes about my growing belly." "Doctor, do you know a Dr. Richard Hawkins from Louisville?" "Never heard of him. Why?" My suspicion was confirmed. Grandma had found a crooked doctor to sign off on fake documents. In the days that followed, I began a desperate investigation from afar. I hired an attorney in Lexington, James Patterson, a specialist in elder fraud. I paid $5,000 out of my own pocket for him to begin investigating immediately.
What Patterson uncovered made me angrier than anything I'd ever felt in a war zone. Kevin had forged my signature on power of attorney documents. He had bribed Dr. Hawkins with $3,000 to sign a false dementia report. He had lied to social workers, claiming that I, as a deployed soldier, had requested he take care of family affairs. But the worst was yet to come. "Mr. Murphy," Patterson said during our second phone call, "I was able to trace the money from the house sale. Your brother spent $127,000 at casinos in Indiana and Ohio over the past 6 months. The rest went to drugs, cocaine, according to my source at the police department. Kevin had destroyed our family out of addiction and greed." "There's more," Patterson continued. "He owes $45,000 to loan sharks in Louisville. He's being threatened, according to witnesses. I have recordings of phone calls where he talks about getting more money once the soldier brother kicks the bucket. My own brother was waiting for my death to cash in." For 3 feverish weeks, I coordinated my revenge from a distance. I completely reorganized my military life insurance. The $400,000 that was originally to be split between Kevin and Grandma Rose would now go entirely to her. I created a detailed will with specific instructions on how she should use the money. I wrote a 15-page letter explaining the whole situation with copies of all the evidence collected. I deposited everything with Patterson with clear instructions. In the event of my death, he was to personally deliver the documents to Grandma Rose. 3 days after finalizing all the arrangements, my patrol was ambushed in Helmand Province.
Death came quickly that April morning. Our patrol was inspecting a suspicious village when gunfire erupted from all directions. A sniper's bullet hit me in the neck. As my life bled out into the Afghan sand, one image filled my mind. Grandma Rose, alone in that nursing home, waiting for justice. My body returned home 2 weeks later, wrapped in the American flag. The funeral was small, held at the Baptist Church in Hazard, where Grandma Rose had taken me as a child. Kevin didn't show up. When asked about his absence, he told the pastor he was too emotionally shaken to attend. In truth, I later discovered, he was in Louisville, meeting with a lawyer to try and speed up the process of claiming the life insurance. Grandma Rose attended, assisted by a nurse from the nursing home. Her white hair was thinner, her body more fragile, but her eyes still shone with the same determination I knew so well. She cried silently throughout the service, holding a photo of me in uniform. After the burial came the reading of the will. Patterson had scheduled the meeting for 3 days later at the law office. Present were Grandma Rose, brought in a medical van, Kevin, who finally showed up, wearing a cheap but new suit, and a few distant relatives. "Let's begin with the financial provisions," Patterson said, adjusting his glasses. "Sergeant Daniel Murphy's life insurance, valued at $400,000, will go entirely to Mrs. Rose Murphy." Kevin's head snapped up. In all our years growing up, I had always told him we'd split any inheritance equally. He expected to receive $200,000. "There must be a mistake," Kevin said, his voice strangely high-pitched. "Danny always said we'd split everything. This isn't right." "There is no mistake, Mr. Murphy," Patterson replied calmly. "Your brother amended the will 3 weeks before his death. And there's more." Patterson opened a thick folder and pulled out my letter. "Sergeant Murphy left specific instructions for me to read this letter aloud in the presence of all beneficiaries. I'll quote directly. To my dear Grandma Rose, if you're hearing this,
It means you've discovered the truth about Kevin. I know about the nursing home. I know about our house being sold. I know about the forged documents. I know about every cent that was stolen from you. Kevin, if you're hearing this, know that I spent the last months of my life gathering evidence of every crime you committed against our family. Kevin's face turned paper white. He looked at Grandma Rose, who was listening with a growing expression of shock. Patterson continued reading. Grandma, inside this folder are all the necessary documents to press criminal charges against Kevin and reclaim what is rightfully yours. I've included recordings of Kevin admitting he forged my signature, forensic analysis proving the documents are fake, witnesses confirming your mental clarity, evidence of the bribe to Dr. Hawkins, and records showing how Kevin spent the money from your house on gambling and drugs. Kevin stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. This is a lie. Danny's dead. He can't prove anything. Sit down, Mr. Murphy, Patterson said firmly. We're not finished yet. The letter continued. Kevin, you waited for my death to inherit my money. Well, you got my death. But you didn't get the money. Instead, you got this. Patterson pulled a set of official documents from the folder. These are copies of criminal charges being filed against Kevin Murphy by the state of Kentucky. The charges include document fraud, embezzlement, unlawful confinement, fraud, and bribery of a public official. Kevin tried to run, but 2 police officers entered the room at that exact moment. Kevin Murphy, said Detective Harrison, you're under arrest. As they placed the handcuffs on Kevin, Grandma Rose finally spoke, her voice trembling but clear. Why, Kevin? Why did you do this to me? I loved you like a son. Kevin turned to her, tears of rage streaming down his face. Because you always loved him more. Danny was the perfect little soldier, and I was just the screw-up. I thought when he died, it would finally be my turn to have something. You had everything, Grandma Rose replied softly. You had a home. You had food. You had love. But you chose the wrong path. As Kevin was taken away, Patterson handed Grandma Rose the insurance check and all the evidence needed to reclaim her house. Your home can still be recovered, Mrs. Murphy, he explained. The buyer was deceived too, so the court will likely void the sale. And with this money, you can hire the best attorneys to make sure Kevin pays for everything he did.
Grandma Rose left Sunset Gardens that very same afternoon. With the $400,000 from my life insurance, she hired the most respected law firm in Louisville to sue Kevin on every possible front. The criminal case was swift and devastating. The recordings I had gathered were irrefutable. Kevin pled guilty in an attempt to get a reduced sentence, but the judge showed no mercy. 12 years in federal prison and a full restitution order for the stolen money, even knowing Kevin had spent it all and had no way to pay it back. The sale of the house was legally annulled. The buyers, a young couple who had purchased it in good faith, received compensation through the lawsuit against Kevin. Grandma Rose returned to the house Grandpa Patrick had built, the house where Kevin and I grew up. With part of the insurance money, she completely renovated the property. She installed a wheelchair ramp, grab bars in the bathroom, a modern security system. The rest of the money was invested, ensuring she could live comfortably for the rest of her life. Kevin is currently serving his sentence in a federal penitentiary in Kentucky. During the first 2 years, he wrote several letters to Grandma Rose, asking for forgiveness, promising he had learned his lesson. She never replied to any of them. Grandma Rose is now 81, surrounded by neighbors who respect her and help her whenever needed. She turned my old bedroom into a small memorial, filled with my military medals and family photos. Every Sunday, she visits the cemetery to place fresh flowers on my grave. My posthumous revenge was perfect, not because it destroyed Kevin. He destroyed himself. It was perfect because it protected the one person in this world who truly deserved every bit of protection and love. Even in death, I was able to make sure Grandma Rose had not only justice, but dignity, safety, and peace in her final years. This is my story. The story of how a dead soldier achieved the most important victory of his life, protecting the one who truly mattered and punishing the one who betrayed the values we were raised to uphold. Sometimes, true justice only comes after we close our eyes forever.